conversation. And as you know, Innovate State features Spartan alumni and friends who are innovators, entrepreneurs, and founders who come back regularly to campus to share their entrepreneurial story with all of you. For those of you in the room, for whom is this your first Innovate State experience? Any first-timers here in the room? Okay, excellent. So a lot of returners. Excellent. Well, welcome. Welcome to those that are watching from afar and tuning in virtually. I appreciate you joining us this evening. Before we get to our featured fireside chat, I do just want to share a couple quick updates or announcements. Tomorrow evening, here in the Minskoff Pavilion, just behind me in the multi-purpose room, we are hosting our Women in Entrepreneurship Pitch Competition. It's an annual event. It will be taking place from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Registration is still available. It's free to attend. Super fun. We highly encourage you to join. It is one of our top pitch competitions here on campus. Excited to support our women in entrepreneurship community tomorrow evening. Speaking of women, today is International Women's Entrepreneurship Day. Another reason why we're so excited to feature tonight's guest. It's a fun time to showcase women in entrepreneurship roles and to celebrate those in that space. So looking forward to tonight's conversation to highlight that as well. I also want to point out that we also have Innovate State in the spring semester. So don't forget that if you're enjoying the conversations that we're bringing to you on a bi-weekly basis throughout the fall, we're going to be kicking things off again in late January as well. I think without further ado, what I'd like to do is introduce both my colleague, Dr. Laura Lostein, the faculty director for the Burgess Institute, and Julie Faupel, tonight's alumni featured guest. If you could join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks everyone for being here. I'm so excited to talk to Julie tonight. And so first I'm going to read a short bio so you can learn a little bit, and then we will get into some Q&A. Julie Faupel is the founder of Realm, a community and marketplace that serves trusted advisors through an award-winning proprietary technology platform that she built and developed. Julie was named 2023 Newsmaker by RIS Media and on the 2023 Luxury Women to Watch list by Luxury Daily, and is widely regarded as a thought leader in the luxury industry. Prior to starting Realm, Julie co-founded the largest independent real estate company in the Teton region, which they built to $2 billion in annual sales before selling the business in 2021. She is a top producing real estate professional, historically ranked in the top 100 teams in the US by the Wall Street Journal, Real Trends. Her perspective has been shaped by working with Fortune 100 CEOs, government dignitaries, heirs and heiresses, technology executives, and other notable figures. Julie is a member of the Young Presidents Organization, where she proudly serves the Global One chapter as chapter chair. And that's just some of it. So
Well,
welcome, Julie.
And now I get to count all of you as amongst people that I've worked with and collaborated with. So thank you all for hosting me and for being such hospitable, amazing friends.
Great. We're glad to have you back on campus. So since you were a student here at MSU, if you would tell us a little bit about your time at MSU, what were you like as a student, and what experiences did you have that influenced your career?
Well, so it's been a minute. It's okay to laugh, you guys. Come on. Like, okay, I need some energy from the audience. We got it. Like, this is not a class, right? We're gonna have some fun, and this is definitely a dialogue tonight. But so it's been a minute since I was here, but I think one of the things I started out, I studied hospitality business when I was here because I knew that, my first job was when I was in second grade. I was selling pages out of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue to sixth graders from underneath the teacher's desk. And so my parents got a call, and they were like, listen, this isn't okay. But so I knew that I was good at business. I knew that I wanted to do something that was very interactive and engaging, but I wasn't necessarily a terrific student, accounting still kind of escapes me, and what I was really good at was community building. And so I knew that, hospitality business, that really resonated with me because I could, kind of throw fun parties and interact with people and talk about what we were all going to do for the weekend. And so so that kind of became my jam at Michigan State. And you know, I mean, I was so fortunate because the program here was so good, and I got to kind of shape this incredible career and be part of the group that was highly recruited, largely because of that Michigan State trust mark, you know. And so I learned a lot about kind of, you know, using your education to really kind of craft what you need it to be and what you want your future to look like. And I think that at the time, there wasn't an entrepreneurship program, but you know, when you look at kind of building a product, everybody in here, you are your first product, right? And so what does that product look like for your consumer? So your first employer, your next step. And so for me, I knew I wanted to be in luxury because that makes, for me, I'm fancy, right? Like, so I kind of like nice stuff. And but I grew up in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I didn't know a lot about luxury. I went to public school. You know, it wasn't like I kind of grew up with this fancy pants existence. I just kind of knew that that was what I was drawn to. And so then being in an environment that then let me foster that path was really incredible. So coming out of the hospitality program, I was recruited by Ritz-Carlton. I had some other really great career opportunities, but one of the things that Michigan State really taught me was that it's so much about kind of like designing your own vision and then executing on that. And you know, I think it's funny because Chris and I were talking as we were walking here, and he was like, how do you feel like, you know, how did this education stack up against, you know, maybe other competitive schools? I married a Wolverine. But, you know, and at the time I didn't think it was going to be fun enough for me, and we fund him up. Over 23 years we have funded him up. But like, you know, he's like, well, did you have an academic experience? And I'm like, you bet I did, but I also learned that it's so much about the network that you build, the people that you hang out with, the ways that you engage other people. And I think sometimes we all convince ourselves, like, if I don't have this pedigree, this is an incredible pedigree. Look at this building that we're sitting in, you guys. It makes me so proud. This didn't exist when I was here 1,000 years ago. And it is, I mean, look at this place. Look at the opportunity that we all have to connect. It's something. I don't even remember what the question was, Laurel.
No, it's great. No, that was perfect, and it's a perfect lead into this. But I do like this space. I think even this space kind of lends itself to fostering connection, right? Because of all the windows, because of all the glass, you can really see in. You can kind of feel a part of things.
Yeah.
I love that. No, it's perfect. I was going to say you've had a long career in the luxury space, so you touched on this a little bit, but how did you learn what differentiates these clients and how to best serve their needs, especially maybe not having had that upbringing?
So here's the big secret, right? Like, everybody has a definition of luxury. We all, like, everybody does. It doesn't matter whether you have $10 in your bank account or 10 million. And I think I had to kind of learn that, you know, because what happens is when you invest in something, so when people would stay at the Ritz-Carlton, so I worked in Aspen, I worked in Atlanta, and I got to live all over the country working for the Ritz. And you know, when you get to stay in a place like that, it's the culmination of something, right? So like for me, I loved being the part of, like, this was the culmination of a year of hard work of planning for a family, and they're entrusting their experience to me. Like, I get to be a little bit a part of their story, you know? And that was really special and cool. And it had nothing to do with kind of how much money anybody had. Like, that was the thing I think, again, we kind of talk ourselves out of a little bit, like, where it's like, well, what does that look like, and what does that, I think my mic just stopped.
I think so too.
Can you hear me, or, yeah, okay, I can stand on my chair and yell, but yeah,
I think
so,
Chris has a
okay.
handheld he'll bring you. Sorry.
No, that's okay, but it's, you know, it's the culmination of something, and I think honoring the fact that everybody has a definition of what luxury means to them today. So, you know, what luxury meant, you know, for those families was like, okay, well, I get to take my family to this very special place, and that was so that became luxury. And then as I moved into real estate, real estate is the culmination of something. It is marking, the start of somebody's life together, the first time they buy a house, the start of financial responsibility and kind of adulthood, or, you buy a second home and it's like somebody is, that's the culmination of a lifetime of hard work, and you get to be a part of like honoring that. And so one of the things that we did as we were kind of embarking on my latest venture on Realm was, it was during COVID, right? And so I believe that luxury is dynamic. And I did an interview actually with he is the CEO of Sotheby's, right? So it was me and the CEO of Sotheby's, which is weird because you feel like security should come and remove you when you're in those kind of environment. But so it's me and the CEO of Sotheby's, and they were like, okay, so what do you believe luxury is? And so what I started to say was, well, I want to know, luxury is dynamic. Luxury doesn't mean like, okay, so is it a Mercedes-Benz or a Rolex watch? Sure, all of those things are true. But is it also quality time? Or during COVID, you guys all came through COVID, right? Like luxury then would have been like, I want to go to class with my buddies, right? Or like, I had at the time we were working with some folks in India, and so I had an Indian chapter mate say he's like, for me, luxury is peace of mind. He said, I can't get to my kids, and I can't, they're abroad in school, and I can't get to my aging parents. I don't ever want this to happen again. That was luxury for them. And so I started to kind of build out this whole philosophy of like, you know what, it's not the stuff, right? That it's not all the trappings, and I love all of the trappings, but like it is so much more than that. And if you can give people the luxury of peace of mind when they work with you, when they're employed by you, think about that. Like people, we're all going to be successful, right? Everybody in this room has that opportunity. And so then you look at the opportunity that you have to make other people successful, give them that luxury of peace of mind, right? That's a pretty amazing thing.
I love that definition of luxury. It's not one I had thought of, so that's beautiful. As an entrepreneur who has built and then exited a business and then reinvented yourself, how have you grown and changed as an entrepreneur?
Well, so, it's funny because I think you kind of, like, I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I had absolutely no intention of exiting the real estate company that I started on April 1st of 2009, right? So I started that business in the absolute throes of the downturn, right? So the worst, in the history of ever, it was the worst time for my husband and I to start a business, and we were like, you know what? I got an idea. Why don't we do this? Wow. We made $1,100 the first year we were in business, and we had 8 partners. So think about that profit sharing. You guys are going to make more like walking home from here tonight. And so when you think about that, though, there isn't a thing that I would change, because all of those things kind of added up to some really, really incredible successes, but then also the confidence to fail, and to let the wheels come off and be like, you know what, I'm gonna need my helmet and my safety goggles because this is gonna get a little bumpy.
Yeah.
But like, that's okay, because if it means that you fail and you fall forward, then those are great lessons. Those are going to make you a better entrepreneur. Those are going to make you a more successful business person, because it isn't just about kind of like, we're gonna get out of here, we have the best education in the world, we're Spartans, let's do this thing. Life gets weird and hard. And like, the more that you can kind of set yourself apart during the hard times are the really defining great moments of being a successful person.
How did you know that you could do that, Julie? So you had been in a steady job, working at Ritz-Carlton, obviously you'd been a lot of places, but how did you make that transition, I guess, from I have a job, I have healthcare, I have, I know what that looks like, to I'm going to take this leap and make $1,100.
I have no idea,
Okay.
Laurel. Nobody's ever asked me that before. No, but I think some of it is like that internal confidence. I think that I have a really, I mean, I have the most remarkable husband in the universe. And I think that I have a really great perspective in that there isn't, when somebody says, I said it this morning, right? Where I'm like, sometimes the rules that we put on ourselves, that we think are keeping ourselves safe, they're keeping you small. And so think bigger, because I think some of that where you're like, oh, I'm a girl, like National Women, yeah, go girls, right? But like, why, what does that have to do with anything? Or, or or I'm not good at accounting, or like whatever it is, like those are things those are kind of lies that we tell ourselves that aren't necessarily true. And so if you have the perspective of like, what is the worst thing that can happen if I fail? Because that's, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm gonna run out of money? Fine, I'll work harder. Like, okay, that's not that big of a deal. I mean, I grew up, my first job was working in aside from selling for the Sports Illustrated things, which that didn't really monetize as well as I'd hoped. But like, aside from that, like, I grew up, my first job was in a convenience store, right? So I have always thought like, okay, so the worst thing in the world is if I have to go back to selling in a convenience store, all right, or what, like checking somebody in where I'm like, oh, great news, you got an upgrade. Okay, fantastic. Like, I can do that, and so like, what is your core skill set? And what's the thing that kind of makes you you? And like taking some of those fears away and just being like, you know what? I got this. There isn't anything. My husband was going to always be okay. We have amazing animals, and we have this incredible group of people that we love, and this amazingly supportive family. And so, like, I knew if they were going to be okay, I would be okay. And so, like, you can't really lose with that kind of perspective.
Yeah. So I think you kind of reinvented yourself a little bit after this business sold. So, I mean, you are living a somewhat different life, very different life. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like how it's, maybe walk us through a little bit. What was that process like of building this business and then coming to a point where you're ready to sell it and figuring out what's next?
Yeah, so we started the real estate brokerage. So April 1st of 2009, the real estate world was falling apart. And so there was a company that had gone bankrupt that my husband and I had helped to position to sell. And so those people exited. The new owner, it took him about 18 months. He took that company into bankruptcy. And so all of these assets of this 40-year company were sitting there. And we were like, this is a bit of the bet the farm moment. Like, we know what to do. We can do this. We had partners that were senior in the business that were kind of looking to get out. They were the ones that had sold the company, and we were like, okay, well, if they can help coach us, and we can roll in some other partners, strengthen numbers during a difficult time, maybe this will work out. And so we did that, and we ended up, we rolled up to, we had about 120 brokers and 11 offices in 2 states when we sold. And we were affiliated with Christie's Auction House. And so we had all sorts of, we were actually twice named the Global Affiliate of the Year. So we had all of this incredible recognition and all of this expertise, and 40% market share. So it was a little bit like we were not in the market to sell, we were having a blast. And a company came along and my stepfather says when somebody makes you an offer you shouldn't refuse, don't. And so like this company was like, we want to be in this market. We're gonna make you an offer, and we sold. But then during that period of time, I had taken kind of my expertise and had already started to build another company, Realm, and so it's kind of been a little bit of a natural evolution. But like the great thing has been is like. Again, you take all of the rules away and you say, okay, so what is, real estate is largely local, right? And it's like, it's siloed and nobody really communicates with each other. And so how do you do that and capitalize like on all the data and on all the tech that's out there and on, how do you improve the communications? And so I was like, well, I think I should be the one that does this.
Yeah.
And so I started to talk to, so we found the guys. I had a friend named Tom Grueller who was the chief marketing officer for Microsoft. And he was the one that was like, Julie, I think you have a really good idea. Like what I was talking about was essentially taking publicly available data and building lifestyle profiles for individuals and then matching that with luxury assets and kind of the lifestyle profile that belongs to luxury assets. So you think about how we all live, right? Where you're like, it has very little to do with bedrooms and bathrooms. It has stuff to do with like, how close is it to the nearest gym? What, does this have a yard? Does it, my dog wants, we need to have a yard for our dog. What about where my kids can play? What about, what all of the things where we all kind of grew up and where we all, those are all lifestyle things. And so how do we match those assets to the lives that we all live? And so, so my friend Tom introduced me to the guys that built Match.com. And so they're the ones that helped me build Realm. And so I think it's been amazing because now we're in 40 states and 18 countries, and we are doing things like representing yachting and aviation, and I get to meet the most interesting people in the world. And I'm still just Julie from Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
Who went to Michigan State, just like
Spartan,
all the students.
But so it's all just kind of like putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And I never thought that I would be here, but I also never thought that I wouldn't, because I think, again, it's kind of like, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of leads to my next question. You have a great husband, a great family, support system. How did you stay motivated, even maybe before those things came into your life? How did you stay motivated during the harder times? Because it's not, as you said, it's a bumpy road in many cases to get to that peak.
Yeah, no, I think everybody has different things, So I have a great sense of humor, in case you haven't noticed. I mean, you guys aren't really laughing with me, but that's okay. That's all right. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm resilient. But so I think some of it is, again, kind of having that sense of humor and being like, and also kind of having that internal fortitude of like, I'm doing the right stuff. I know that this is right. And having an incredible sense of responsibility for the people that are on the journey with me. And, I think sometimes the media will celebrate, like when somebody says, oh, whatever big giant enterprise just laid off 500 people, how, amazing. I'm like, that's not amazing. People, we all in this room want the responsibility of having people that are basing their livelihoods on us as business owners, right? And so they're making decisions based on the decisions that we make. And so I've always kind of said, I don't ever want to be the one. I'll go home and I'll go hungry before I let somebody that works for me, that's making decisions, like I don't ever want to let somebody down. And so that was kind of the massive, like when things really get tough, I'm just like, damn it. Nobody's gonna have bet on me and lost.
That's great. No, that's very impressive. I think it takes a lot of confidence to do that, and obviously it's nice that hopefully other people feel that same way. And when you have a partner, we talk a lot about having a co-founder, so that the days you think you're crazy, you've got someone else there to kind of pick you up and tell you, no, I still believe in this.
That's right. Well, and it is for any of you that you're like, where you have an idea and you're just launching it and you're like, this is the greatest idea in the world. I'm going to change everything. I'm the biggest failure there ever was. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is the next, whatever, Amazon. Oh no, what's going to happen? How we're going to put food on the table? Like, that's natural, right? Like that, I've gone through those emotions like in the last 20 minutes. Like that's natural, so just stay with it.
Love it. In addition to your busy work schedule, you contribute a lot of your time to supporting community organizations, and I know you've been very involved in Young Presidents Organization, which I think the students might like to hear about that, as well as your other community organization work. And I wonder a little bit about that, and also how you balance time because you work so hard and to stay so involved.
Yeah, so YPO, Young Presidents Organization, is the largest network of CEOs in the world. So it's about 36,000 CEOs. There are different criteria that you have to meet based on the size of your business. What it represents, though, it's the fourth largest, like if you were to combine all of the businesses and what they represent, it's essentially the fourth largest GDP in the world. And so it's a significant organization, and so it's a fabulous way to kind of sit in a room full of peers and to go through like, okay, I'm having these problems, I'm struggling with this, and people that have been, kind of walked in your same shoes. And so, so I'm very proud. My chapter is global, so it's the second largest chapter in YPO. We represent 30 different countries, and people from everything from one of the founders of Zoom is a chapter mate of mine, to a woman who was actually this is amazing, a woman who was on the cover of Fortune when she was 29 years old. She never finished college, and her mom told her that she was going to be a failure, and she's like, hey mom, I was on the cover of Fortune magazine like last year. And so it's funny because it's like everybody kind of goes through their stuff, right? And so that's why PO, and that's been incredible because there have been a lot of opportunities that have arisen from that. And then I am, I think one of the things that I learned from my husband was when we moved to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and we started the real estate business, and he was like, Julie, one of the things that we have to do, if we expect this community to make us successful, we need to make it successful. And I think that can apply to most everything in life, like where you can't, if you're not willing to invest, why would somebody be willing to invest in you? And so we give back to our community. We are angel investors. That is something that I think is just kind of a mindset and a lifestyle. And anytime you can kind of say like, gosh, there's so much good to be done. And, because you're all sitting in this room, because you have a world-class education like Michigan State, because you're all hungry and motivated, like being successful is a little bit like getting out of bed. If you keep doing the right things, it's going to happen for you. So then what's next? How do you then make other things successful? Because that's really what's cool.
I love that. Many of the students are from small towns, and I know something we were talking about before, just before this talk was, being in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, is that a big enough place, a big enough metropolis to have your business? And so, you run a global company from there. So can you talk a little bit about how you've made that work? Because I think, having a great place that you love to live is important. Yeah. And if you can do it with a business, even better.
Well, and I think that's one of the things, like, as COVID was happening, so we were laughing earlier today about, like, so we started the real estate business on April 1st of 2009, and then Realm was ready to launch on March 1st of 2020. And so, like, when you think about my timing, it's horrifying. And so the good news for everybody in this class or in this room is that I'm not getting ready to launch any new businesses, so I think we're all safe from like economic collapse. Come on, that's funny stuff, you guys. That's good stuff. So I think one of the things we learned from COVID, Realm was originally headquartered in Denver, Colorado, and it wasn't because I had any ties there, but it was because I felt like nobody would take me seriously if it was from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And so we ended up, we had offices there. We had a lot of time and expense invested in traveling back and forth to Denver for absolutely no reason. And so then when we were like, hey, there are lots more talented people in other places, and like, what are we doing? We got all these Zoom meetings happening. And so we pivoted. We actually wound down the offices and said, okay, so now we're, why don't we just go to a whole virtual workforce? And so now we have, our team is all over the place, and everybody just kind of deals with, time zones, and we have Zoom calls. We're looking at international expansion in 2025. So, and kind of beyond the 18 countries that we're in now, we're looking at, Abu Dhabi and the Emirates, and and India and beyond. And you're dealing with like a full 12-hour time zone change, and people just deal. And I mean, that's kind of the beauty of finding the right people to surround yourself with.
Yeah, and I mean, we've become a very international campus, and so I think, you know, a lot of the students deal with that with their families and, you know, keeping in touch, and it's been really interesting, I'm sure, for you, you know, any of you have roommates who kind of see that up close and personal. And for during COVID, we certainly saw that with students online, you know, being other places. So what advice do you have for students and other entrepreneurs that maybe we haven't covered yet? Lessons you wish you could have told your college self?
Yeah, I think, again, I think it just goes back to fall forward. You know, like, it's falling down is inevitable, but like what you do with that, fall forward, you know, because you're not really pushing yourself if you're just like, oh, it was so easy. Like, that's super boring. I mean, I don't want to, that just means you have more capacity. And that's kind of like with everything, right? Like, so whether you're just like, oh yeah, I made a layup, or I, you know, whatever, scored a goal, okay, neat. But like those aren't the stories that people tell. You know, like, what's your story going to be? Like, what is your great adventure? You know, like I think some of the best stories equate to the amount of suffering that goes into them, you know, and so be interesting and be resilient, and, you know, think about what sets you apart, and be kind of scrappy, because I think that's where it's at.
I love that. Before we move to the student questions, I'm going to ask my super cheesy question, because it might be on your mind, but you may be too embarrassed to ask. So I watch Selling Sunset, and since you are in luxury retail, please tell us, is it real? Do you know these people?
Yeah, you know what, people like those.
I mean, come on, you wanted to know.
Yeah,
you know.
I don't know a lot of real estate professionals outside of LA that look like that. Like, I mean, that is something else. But you know, there is a lot of glam, and there is a lot of kind of that. You know, when you think about yourself as the product, that is a little bit of what they're showing, you know, and so the Oppenheims are great, and I mean, Mauricio is a member of Realm. We actually have you know, he's on a call with us tomorrow. He's an incredible ambassador for us, and the thing that I think is the most amazing is that it's sensational, and yeah, like some of the places that I've gotten to go and see and experience because of luxury, and because it's remarkable. But at the end of the day, the most successful people are the ones that roll their sleeves up and get to work, and they call you back or they answer their phone. They're not the nonsense people that you kind of see where it's like, oh, you know, I mean, they're just as real as everybody in this room.
Yeah, I love that. The people that, even though they've achieved a great level of success, they still, you know, are happy to give back to students, to, you know, to be able to mentor, give advice, or, you know, they answer phone calls, they answer emails. And
That's right.
Yeah, it makes you feel definitely with a lot of worth. I love that. Well, Julie, thank you so much. I know there are a lot of student questions.
Let's
so
hope
are you
so.
Up for taking
Otherwise, I'm going
some?
to come and I'm going to ask you guys some questions. How's that?
I'm sure we'll have some. We have Allison is over there with the microphone, and she will hand it off. So just raise your hand. Just give them a minute. Takes a second.
It's like the
Takes a
warm-up
second.
time.
This is a warm-up.
Time.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
She's
Thank you. So I have two kind of related questions. So first off, what is particularly different or difficult about real estate in such a small, concentrated, and arguably high compression market such as Jackson Hole? And then kind of in the direction that I'm curious about, how much residential square footage generally enters the pipeline and is being added to the market, or does protected land and zoning laws prevent additional supply?
Wow. Okay, Laurel, I'm going to let you take this one. No, so Jackson is like any destination market, you know, where you are pretty constrained in terms of supply and high in demand. And so, you know, when you look at like what we're affected by is, you know, when largely it's either the entry level when people are stepping up, right? So like you use leverage to kind of step up in the marketplace. So people buy and they count on the fact that real estate in Jackson Hole, Wyoming is appreciating on average over the last 30 years about 12% a year, which is remarkable compared to what we're used to in Michigan or kind of the Midwest in general. But when you look at like what happens during a recessionary period is that wealthy people just don't sell. They're not willing to, so we don't see depreciation the same way. It's just inventory that's just kind of sitting there and is latent. And so you know, they just kind of wait. And so like during the downturn, and even the last 2.5 years, which have been really kind of challenging in destination markets, you know, inventory has gone down, sales have gone down by about 75%. And so when you think about how you're managing your business, you know, most businesses would be out of business with a 75% reduction in transactions. So you've got to kind of manage that accordingly. Now, to your second question, when you're looking at like what, you know, how much new inventory is hitting the market, it's only 2% of the land in places like Jackson Hole or Telluride or Aspen, only about 2% of the land is really truly developable. And so it's not like what you're looking at is more about like resales entering the market and trading. And so you have crazy things like people buying perfectly good homes, you know, for tens of millions of dollars and then taking them down and actually then building new homes. So it's a little different in that we don't see a lot of new construction. If we do, you know, it's largely in like affordable housing. It's in areas that are less desirable, but then it's to house like the workforce and to do kind of more multifamily units, things that can accommodate kind of the growing demand from the high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals that are coming in to places like ours.
Great question. Others?
Yes. So YPO is the Young Presidents Organization, and so that means that you have to be the CEO of your company that has reached a certain size by the time you're 45 years old. And so, it's an amazing network and people that have gone through a lot of what we're all in varying stages of that. And then Realm came from a naming organization called PE 101 that is actually out of New York. And so they gave us 44, as we were forming it, they gave us 44 names and the psychographics that came behind kind of like, why would you call your new real estate community? One of them was Wink. What,
Wow,
Wink. But
weird.
these are the guys, yeah. And but these are the same guys that named Swiffer. And the same guys that you know, kind of came up with, I mean, they've named everything. And so like now you think about it, you're like, no, I don't sweep anymore, I Swiffer. And so we were like, well, okay, so one of the names, and it was pretty much a standout from the beginning, was Realm. And we were like, gosh, that is really cool. Now, fast forward, as we kind of were like, we became more and more attached to it, and we started to kind of go through the trademarking process. And one of my friends goes, you know, that stands for Real Estate and Lifestyle Meet. And I was like, well, you don't say.
Oh my gosh.
But so
Wow.
we went and trademarked that too, but it was like, yeah, but that was where it kind of was a bit of a fluke.
That's so perfect. I love it. I know there are other questions.
Please, guys.
Come on.
Yes.
Where do you see the future of Realm going?
Yeah, so Realm is intended to be a marketplace. And so, you know, with the software platform itself, we now have, so we started out, when we launched during COVID, we started out with one patent, and that was in the luxury space. We have 15 patents now, and so we can do everything from matching, we can match people with the kind of planes that they want to buy or the kind of yachts that they want to buy. We can match, you know, kind of, I mean, anything you think about, you know, fitness or wellness or any of those things. And the reason we went back, okay, so I'll do a little name dropping if that's okay, like just to keep you guys entertained. So we have clients that actually, he's a family office manager, and he just manages actually the family office for A-Rod. But at the time, he was managing the family office for A-Rod and J-Lo, right? And so A-Rod does a lot of real estate, which people don't really know about, and he was wanting to do a little bit more kind of in the luxury space. And so our client came to us and said, hey, would you ever show Alex and Jennifer this platform that you built? And I was like, let me think about this. Yes, of course. So I was in New York and in Tribeca, and I went to their house and showed them Realm, and then I also took a picture of everything that J-Lo has in her medicine cabinet and in her refrigerator. No, that's not true. But no. So, and showed them Realm, and and Alex said, "Will this do this for planes?" And at the time, we had 1 patent, and I was like, fake it till you make it. Like that's okay. So I'm like, probably. And so I got into the Uber, and I called the IP attorney that we were using, and I was like, Mike, do you think we can get the patent on other stuff? And he was like, let's try. And so, that one meeting and sitting in their kitchen and learning from those guys, what a moment, right? And, but then two, that's the stuff that where there are those moments where you're just like, okay, take all the rules away.
Yeah.
And see, I don't know anything about it. I'm like, oh yeah, Alex, I hate buying planes too. Let me help you. Yeah. So that's kind of the future now, and he helped me create that kind of big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And so that's exciting. So that's where we're headed.
Is there Realm planes and Realm yachts and Realm, are they different businesses?
No, it would all, so
it's
no,
all
I
out
think,
there.
well,
Okay.
because when you think about it, so it's kind of like an ecosystem, right? And one purchase informs another one. So when you think about okay, so I love collecting contemporary art, right? And so you start to think about well, all right, so if I'm buying a house, that is going to suit my art collection, but then wait, there's a new place for a new piece. I want to, as an art gallery owner, I want to know that, Mrs. Gotrocks just bought a new house and she has an opportunity to place a new piece of art. So Mrs. Gotrocks just bought her Caribbean hideaway and she's got to have a Caribbean wardrobe. And so let's let her stylist know. And so you start to think about the way, we did a partnership with Rivian, the electric cars. So we have a strategic partnership with them. And because what happens is people, they buy a house somewhere else and they're like, well, now I got to have a car. And Rivian is like, we can help you with that. And so the partnership started a year ago. And I think Realm has sold 6 vehicles through Rivian, and through real estate brokers.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yes. I think it depends on value alignment, right? It depends on what you're looking for in a so are you talking about a founder? Are you talking about somebody that is a strategic partner? I think you look at what your brand is, and then somebody that is going to align with that and always add value, I think is a great partner. But it's hard because it's like marriage, right? I mean, I'm sure not a lot of you guys know about that. Yeah, but it's it's tough. I mean, I was telling this story early. So one of the things that happened to us when we were growing the brokerage is we had Christie's, a Christie's auction house. So that's owned by a French billionaire by the name of Francois Pinault. And Christie's came to us and said, we think you guys run a really great real estate company. We'd love for you to help us franchise this, this brand. And I am a big idea person, and I was like, heck yes, and my husband was the one that was like, what happens if we want to break up with them? What happens in this, we don't have the means that Francois Pinault does, and so what if they want to sue us? Who's going to lose? And we didn't do that deal. But it was probably one of the most, because I was like, I only see the upside because I'm like, everybody loves me all the time. It's what happens. It's fine. But like, what happens when they fall out of love? And I think that that's a good partner never is somebody that you fear.
Life lessons, too. Other questions?
I'm wondering how you're able to expand around to 40 states and 18 different countries only within the last 4.5 years.
It's not a lot of sleep. No, I think it's about finding really great partners, right? And kind of, having people that share the dream and really are willing to kind of pull on the rope as hard as you are. And also, I think I'm not somebody that is, I love success, but there's also a difference between success and being greedy. And so being able to give up some to get some is really amazing, and just kind of continuing to follow that inertia. Yeah.
Along your career, specifically in the luxury space, I'm sure you have come into a lot of conflict with other people. Do you have any tips for resolving that, and do you have any fun stories about
I have a lot of not fun stories about conflict. Yeah.
See,
People
it all
are
comes back to selling
wacky.
sunset,
People
we're
are
saying.
wacky. Yeah, no, but I think it's, I think one of my favorite things is being able to be kind of like that calm in the storm, where it's like the, where you're like, I'm just going to be the voice of reason and kind of try to get through this, because everybody, when you get to a place where like when you're dealing with people of extreme wealth, you have like, I'm like, if you didn't have any money, you would be in prison, like. But now, because they're wealthy, they're called eccentric, and we have to like deal with them. And so I think some of that is not getting tied up in the nonsense, because I think a lot of time, and also just really being respectful of like what they, because they're usually very, very sensitive about being taken advantage of. And I think I've always just prided myself on being like, you know what, I'm gonna be your trusted advisor. I'm gonna be somebody that you can, it doesn't matter, the money doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, there are always people with more. And so like, don't focus on that. I'm trying to think, so as far as fun stories, I mean, I have an heiress client that her dog has picked out every piece of real estate she has ever purchased, and it is in the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate all over the globe. But her dog flies with her on her plane. Jonesy gets out of the plane. He inspects the real estate, and then we decide where to go. So, when I'm like, you're like, I mean, you can imagine when it's the downturn, and I'm like, I'm gonna put bacon on every piece of furniture here, like. But no, so there are things like that where you're just like, this is crazy. But then there are also like, I mean, it's a very litigious business, and I think one of the things that people, if you just do the right things, and people will say, okay, I want to sue you, I'm going to do this, and I mean, I've been sued. That's not the end of the world. You kind of keep going, because it's, as long as you do the right things, the court system the right things always prevail. And I'm like, there are lots of people that I probably could have sued over the years, and I choose to step over those dead bodies. So rather than being kind of tied up in the really, really negative process of like, I'm gonna get you and I'm gonna show you, I step over that dead body and I just keep right on going. And I focus on the future. And I think that that's kind of, at the end of the day, that's the best thing to do. Yes?
Actually, you're obviously surrounded by entrepreneurs every day in your life, and now you're like interacting with people all over the world. What is something that has really stuck with you that someone has said?
Gosh. Okay, so stuck with me that somebody has said. I think that the mind-blowing moment, right, when I was on a Zoom call, with my YPO chapter, right, so it was during COVID, and I was asking everybody about what is your definition of luxury. And so, and I had forced my husband to get up with me because I was like, okay, so our chapter mates in India and overseas are having happy hour. Let's get up, we'll have coffee with them. When is when are you ever gonna be able to connect and be in quarantine together again? And so, so I asked what luxury was, and the luxury of peace of mind is something that as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, I think that was true. I mean, we changed how we market. We changed how we changed our handbook. We changed everything about how we do business because there is a luxury in that. And I think that was so defining. So sorry to repeat myself, but that was, I mean, that was truly one of the most remarkable, like, holy cow, what just happened?
A lot of times students like to ask about books. Are there any books that you've read that had a real impact on you or anything you would recommend?
So, oh gosh, let's see. So, I love true crime.
Okay, yeah.
No, I mean, I do think like brain, but brain
fans.
candy is also
Yeah.
important. Like, you know, take some time to kind of unplug. You know, I mean, like it's some of the basics. I mean, like we were talking the other day about who moved my cheese,
Yeah.
right? Where I'm like, that is an oldie but a goodie.
It
You know,
is,
where you're
yeah.
like, that is, you know, there's some of that where, you know, it's all about how you embrace change and what's happening and kind of, you know, and not being so set in your ways that you can't pivot. Because I think it's like, it's easy to get a little bit of success and to be like, okay, this is good enough. And then you're like, okay, but then suddenly the marketplace changes and you're like, okay, but wait, I'm gonna keep doing it this way. And you're like, that is the definition of insanity. Don't do that anymore. Yeah, you know, and, or we were talking about earlier about like the whole Redbox, Blockbuster, Netflix thing. Like, who wants to be Blockbuster? You know, like, so you gotta kind of keep going and challenge yourself that way.
Yeah, I love that. One more question? Anyone have one more question?
Come on, like a grand finale.
Doesn't have to be the biggest, best question. Just something you're
Oh, come
dying
on,
to
give them a
ask.
little challenge.
Something you're
Laurel.
gonna come up here and ask her as soon as I tell you we're done. 5, 4. Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Something in your personal life ever caused like a huge obstacle in your business or professional life?
My nephew is in the room. My husband. No. No, I think something in my personal life caused it. I think some of that is myself to a large degree. Like I think, and you actually asked about this. I don't think I ever answered it, but like there is a having balance and having boundaries is really, really important, and I'm not very good at that. And so what ends up happening is there's an interplay that creates codependency that is really, like that right now is my personal focus, where I'm like, how is it that I have all these baby birds? You know, where like, you don't want to create an environment where everybody is just waiting to get fed, right? And I have a tendency to do that. And so, and then I'm like, what the hell are all these baby birds doing here? I don't want to do that. I want them to feed themselves. And so I think that for me is like, that's been my biggest challenge, because it's also been a bit of my business model, you know? And so the universe has rewarded me for a little bit of that fracture. And so identifying that and kind of, I actually have a dear friend that had a really big, amazing exit. He sold his business to Colgate. He essentially patented the chemical peel.
Oh.
And so, but he was like, the greatest gift success has given me is the ability to be more self-aware. And I think that that's something we can all really do well, is like continue to learn from ourselves and like, what are we doing to screw up our lives, right? And then evolve. So that's kind of, I guess that's been a challenge, but I'm working on it. So I would just say, you know, I am not somebody that's hard to reach. If you guys have questions and you didn't want to raise your hand or you didn't want to speak up, like I'm more than happy to respond to emails, or
I mean, you could text me. I don't really care. It's fine. I've got, and so, if you're looking, like one of the things I think about a lot is like, how are you guys setting yourselves apart as entrepreneurs and as business owners and as kind of the future of this business? Like, what are you doing? Like, when you have a big idea, that's great, but what are you doing about it? How are you activating your sphere of influence or the resources that you have here through Michigan State, through these incredible faculty? Like, and I think that's what's exciting, is like anybody can have an idea, but like, what are you actually gonna do to put it into action? And like, I challenge each of you with that. Like, don't just be the idea, but be the people that actually enact that.
What a great place to stop. Thank you so much, Julie. We really appreciate you being here. If you have questions, please come up and ask. And don't forget, we pitch competition tomorrow night. Thank you all.